This is K.M. Weiland, and you're listening to the 137th episode of the Wordplay Podcast. After nearly 6 months of delays, I've finally been able to clear my schedule of all major projects so that I can devote my full attention to finishing the rewrite of Dreamlander and getting it well on its way to publication. I'm used to my steady 2-hour writing sessions, so doubling and even tripling that on some days has been a little overwhelming at first. But once I got past the blank terror of knowing I was going to have to come up with 2,000 to 3,000 words a day, I settled down in a great routine. It's been a fun, relaxing, and productive week, if you can legitimately cram all those words into one sentence. I'm chugging along on the story, partying away with my characters, and generally enjoying this brief time in which I get to live the dream of writing all day long, every day. It can't last forever, but I'm determined to stave off the demands of other projects for as long as I can, or even better, until I finish this rewrite. How to tell if your story begins too soon. The latest post in the video series on my blog talks about a few of the problems and warning signs of beginning a story too early in the plot. You can watch the video on my blog at wordplay-kmweiland, that's weiland.blogspot.com. New videos are posted every Wednesday. And now I hope you enjoy this week's podcast. The Secrets of Story Structure, Part 1. Why should authors care? What's the single most overlooked, misunderstood, and yet important part of storytelling? Since you already know the title, you also know that the answer is structure. Most uninitiated writers have two different reactions to the idea of story structure. Either they think it's great, but too mystical and lofty to be understood by common mortals, or they think it's formulaic hooey that will sap the art right out of their books. I started out somewhere in the camp that didn't even realize there was such a thing as structure. From there, I progressed to reading complicated outlines that left me shaking my head. If that was structure, then my story was practically written for me before I even came up with a decent idea. Thanks, but no thanks. What I didn't know, what most writers don't know, is that even as I subjected the idea of story structure to ignorance and ridicule, I was actually structuring my stories without even realizing it. In the years since, I've been introduced to many theories of structure, all of which bear out the inevitable components found in all good stories, whether their authors deliberately structured them or were just lucky enough to wing it on their own good instincts. Some experts' approach to structure is mesmerizingly complex. John Truby's must-read The Anatomy of Story presents 22 elements of story structure. Sid Field's canonical screenplay, which is just as valuable for novelists as for screenwriters, breaks story down into the simpler 3-act structure. I prefer a happy medium of the two. 10 steps that are found in every story and, when arranged correctly, give both author and reader the biggest bang for their buck. As you probably already figured out, all this just goes to say that today I'd like to introduce a new series. Over the next few months, we'll be exploring the mysteries, the fallacies, and the opportunities of structure. But first, let's consider a few of the reasons every author should care about structure, and why none of us should fear it. Structure is required in all of art. Dancing, painting, singing, you name it. All art forms require structure. Writing is no different. To bring a story to its full potential, authors must understand the form's limitations, as well as how to put its many parts into the proper order to achieve maximum effect. Structure does not limit creativity. Authors often fear structure will limit their ability to be creative. If they have to follow a certain road in their story and observe certain pit stops, won't the story be written for them? But this isn't the case. Structure presents only a shape, the curve of the story arc that we all recognize as vital to a novel's success. The only difference is that structure allows us to be concrete and confident in our creation of that arc, ensuring the shape always turns out perfectly. Structure is not formulaic. Another fear is that if every story has the same structure, won't every story ultimately be the same? But this isn't any more true than is the idea that because every ballet incorporates the same movements, every ballet must be the same. Structure is only the box that holds the gift. What that gift may be is as wildly varied as the wrapping paper it hides behind. Structure offers a checklist of must-have elements. Don't we read how-to books because we're wanting to discover and remember all the elements that make up a successful story? Structure is nothing more than a list of those elements all tied up in one tidy package. So how handy is that? Structure solidifies mastery of the craft. Learning to consciously understand the techniques you're probably already using on an instinctive level can only broaden your understanding and tighten your mastery of the craft. When I first discovered the intricacies of structure, I was amazed to realize I was already incorporating most of the elements into my stories. Learning about them then allowed me to strengthen my raw instinct into purposeful knowledge. So, are you ready to open up a whole new world of storytelling? Structure is exciting, comforting, and liberating all at the same time. So whether you're discovering the ins and outs of story structure for the first time, or just brushing up, I hope you'll join us for the next 10 weeks as we delve into the most salient and crucial moments in the structure of a story. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, visit me on the web at wordplay-kmwyland, that's weiland.blogspot.com, and be sure to listen again next week.